educators, families, um, children, school district leaders, family engagement folks. Um, Here today, we just have quick 5 minutes to to define family engagement, which is no small task. I've provided some resources in the chat box, so hopefully if you'd like to find out more, you could dig a little bit deeper by clicking on those resources. I'm going to start out by talking about what family engagement is not. So, in the past, many schools or districts would organize, food and festivals, bake sales, um, parent family events. And this is really more like family involvement, where schools are seeking families to be involved in schools. But what was happening is that only certain families were able to attend these events because of transport, childcare, job restrictions, and the time of day. So in the early 2000s, there was a lot of research done on family engagement. And what was discovered is that when schools and districts and families are equal partners, where capacity is built and where the school or the learning environment under the current circumstances is welcoming and inviting, then students are more successful. They attend school more regularly, even if that means attending virtual classes. Their grades improve, their behavior improves, and they have better outcomes. More students graduate from high school, and more go on to pursue post-secondary careers or education. So this is really, really important, and it's important to do it well. We are not seeking to involve the families who are already involved. We are seeking to beyond the families who can and do show up for events. That's great. In fact, we might pull from some of that community because of their cultural base, their languages, their capacity to organize and lead. But we really want to engage all families. So according to one of our partners, Sherry, who's at NAFC, and I've put their website in the chat box, if you ask a room full of people to define family engagement, you'll get a room full of answers. And this is great, but it's also problematic if we're trying to do intentional, meaningful family engagement that has a learning outcome for the students. So if one person thinks about family engagement as being an open house and another person thinks about it as being, homework help or participating in book fair, then you can imagine how hard it would be to create a plan and to measure your efforts. So she says, for me, family engagement is any way that a child's adult caretaker supports their learning and healthy development. That means any way. So, for some families, that might mean having breakfast together. That might mean having a question of the day at dinner time. It might mean walking their child to the bus stop or checking in with them by phone at the end of the day. And, these are all perfectly meaningful ways for families to engage. We may, in some cases, provide training in order to build capacity amongst families. We need to make sure that that training or the outreach to families is culturally relevant. So at the Massachusetts Statewide Family Engagement Center, we have outreach coordinators for Black and Brown community, for Haitian community, for Latino community, for Chinese community, we have a few cultural brokers for other communities. And I'm sure I missed some, but these folks help us to connect with people from their communities. And, it's proved to be really powerful if I, as your child's educator or your child's principal, don't connect with you or trust has been lost or broken. Unfortunately, sometimes someone from that child's community, neighborhood or cultural or language is more likely to be successful in reaching out to the family. Hey, we're having this event, or these are the things that our teacher has suggested. Let's do it tonight together online. So I'll read a little bit from my definition. I'm still, this is really, it's complicated, but, for me as an educator, researcher, and practitioner, family engagement is a set of system-wide scaled policies and resources and practices that outreach to caregivers and families to connect with each other. their child's teacher or teachers, and their school to share ideas and information about their children. So we want to stop doing in family engagement to families, and we want to start doing it with families. This allows for an equal partnership with schools and districts to develop and assess how children's learning and motivation is impacted when capacity is built amongst caretakers and educators. So another resource I've popped in the chat box is the Massachusetts multi-cross-agency prenatal to young adulthood strengthening partnerships framework. And this is taken from what's worked in healthcare, what's worked in human and social services, and what works in education, and kind of blending that. So there are lots of key ways to thinking about family engagement, what works. And I'd also like to end by just having everyone think about, what is engagement? So as an educator or a principal or a teacher trainer, when I walk into a classroom, engagement is not when kids are, with their heads down and taking notes or, typing on their computer. No, engagement is when, that might be engagement, but it also might not. And there might be a lot of children who look like they're on task, but they're not fully engaged. And this is a problem. So think about, as we leave each other today, what is your most engaging learning experience that you've ever had, and what made it so? And how can we make family engagement truly inviting and equitable for all families to access, so that we can have the successful learner outcomes that we're striving for? Thank you so much, and please feel free to reach out to us at MassFac or FCSN. We are here for you and really working deeply in family engagement. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.